On today's episode of the Real Estate Rainmakers podcast, we are going to be touching on old school versus new school marketing methods. Which ones are you employing? Which ones are working now? And what can you take from the past and put in the present and get the best results for right now? Let's get it going.
Welcome to the Rainmaker Podcast, where we help business-minded real estate agents stop chasing leads and help them start attracting business. We don't claim to make winners here. We do claim that we help winners win bigger and faster. Building your business is building your database, one that works harder for you than you do for it. So if you want to get off the transaction treadmill, keep on listening. If you want the shortcut to dominating your market, then go to www.marketmakersystems.com/demo.
All right, so today we're talking about old school versus new school. What you know about Mr. Odo, Mr. Mike Odo? What do you know about old school versus new school?
I quite a bit actually. I ran a lot of old school and thought it was new school. Didn't really understand and didn't know what I didn't know. So excited to get into this topic.
Yeah, I would actually say I don't know what you mean by old school versus new school. I was excited to jump on this topic mainly personally because I wanted to get more context of what do you think it means, Jacob? I mean, why did you pick this topic? Because you picked this topic, and I want to know why. I mean, you talked to a lot of agents. What was your goal of deciding this was going to be a valuable topic? What are you trying to accomplish for the listener today?
Man, I think the biggest thing is understanding why what has been working for so long just seems like it just keeps getting more and more.
What's been working for so long? What are you talking about?
The old school marketing playbook that everybody has played from forever, right? Which is,
explain. No, I don't know.
Okay, so let me break it down real quick. And this is what we've all have done, and this is what has worked for everybody, and still will work. It just becomes increasingly more difficult, which is you acquire new people, right? You generate leads, and you think of them all as just leads, and you either do that via direct mail, or you do that via Facebook now, which is kind of a new method, but you're still just bringing people into the same old process, which is how do I get people in? How do I beat them over the head until they talk to me? And then once I beat them over the head, if they're ready, great, then I'm going to be able to turn that person into a client. If they're not ready, kind of whatever, I'm just going to keep trying to get more people to raise their hand whatever way possible. And sometimes not even raise their hand, like the cold calling method, and being able to do that and really have this strong outbound presence, which again, there's nothing wrong with. It's becoming increasingly more difficult because people don't like to be sold, right? Like if you had a choice, if you're shopping online right now, or if you're shopping for anything, any major purchase, is the first thing you want to do if you're going to go buy a car, right? Is the first thing you want to do just to go to a car dealership and talk to one of the salespeople that come out as soon as you pull up into the dealership? Typically, that's not going to be the number one thing that most people now would want to do. They're going to want to jump on and check out cars.com or check out Auto Trader, do research, wherever it may be. And then once they've gotten to the point where they're ready to make a decision, then they're going to want to talk to somebody at that point. They're going to want to find out more. But the whole buying process with how technology has changed is continuously changing. And it's becoming more difficult to do what we've tried to do, which is just how do we get in touch with more people? How do we, essentially pitch more people to see if they're ready to buy or sell with us? But, that we have had that become more and more difficult. Email came out, but now there's spam folders and Gmail has 3 different inboxes that you're trying to get into.
Yeah. But let me ask you a question. Is email old school or new school?
I would say email is old school now, but how you do that, right? Like there's ways to do it that can punch through the clout, right? The noise, if you will. How can you become different in that facet?
I think I want to jump in because I think what Jake is essentially trying to say is the topic in its essence is advertising versus marketing.
That is I never thought of it like that, but that might be very correct. And it's just understanding that you can take people on an actual journey versus just trying to beat them over the head. And I think we talked about it a little bit last week too, of the rules of marketing versus the rules of dating and how they're actually pretty similar. Actually, I think we talked about that on a Facebook Live. It was something that Odo you shared, and how most people they just try to go straight for the sale, and they're only trying to make a sale today. And how can I make a sale today? And when you have that short-minded goal in place in your head, and if that's all you're thinking about, that's all that'll ever happen, and you'll stay on the treadmill, which most people are on, most agents are on, that like, where's my next deal coming from, rather than having like an actual system in place that allows people to have a better experience with you from the minute they come in contact with you. So if they see an ad of yours on Facebook, and let's say that it's a buyer search ad, just because somebody enters in something saying that they want to see pictures of a house does not mean that they are ready to buy right now. In fact, the data probably shows that they are actually more likely to not be looking right now than to be looking right now. All right. And when you understand that and know that you have to have systems in place to find the lowest hanging fruit out of the people that you're getting to add to your database of subscribers, you want to have systems in place to identify the lowest hanging fruit. But you want to have, more importantly, a system in place that is new school, that's attracting those people, that's all based around content, and understand that everything in business right now is just the people that are winning are the people that have amazing content. Is the NFL even though that they've taken a hit recently, I think the NFL is one of the biggest essentially companies in America with how much revenue they do. But all they do, they have amazing content. I watched like 9 hours worth of content on Sunday of the NFL. That's a lot of time of and attention that they're getting because they have amazing content. Netflix is worth like some ungodly amount of money in a short time frame because they have amazing content, right? They have amazing content, and they pay absurdly large sums of money to get better content, right? Ozark, you get all these big stars to start doing TV shows for Netflix. That wouldn't have happened 10 years ago. That never would have happened because all the content and all the money in content was in movie theaters for entertainment, right?
Yeah, I think I don't think the reason why I asked the question I asked Jake was because I do think that there's a misconception, and it's more of I believe that marketing hasn't changed. I think the technology to deliver the message has, and I think that fundamentally, newspapers were content. I think if you really go look at what we're doing today, consumption, whether it was a VHS, a cassette tape, the technology allows you to be more efficient. So, think about back in the 40, I don't know, whenever the Civil War was, let's just say, the general would, someone have to ride a horse with a note, to let them know if they won or lost the war, right? We can know something that happens in a school in a podunk town, within minutes, live, watch it on TV and on our iPhone. So, technology consolidates things and makes them more efficient. But I think the reason why I asked what I wanted to ask, because see, the marketers that I study actually study what you would consider as old school because they believe the messaging is good. And that's why, like, if you watch Mad Men, you'll see on Mad Men, you'll see amazing messaging, which is fundamentally I don't care what you do. You can do, I don't care your delivery, your media. You can do newspaper, YouTube. You can do direct mail or email. If your messaging's off, if you're, and you can't get the attention of the audience, um, then you're not going to be able to turn a stranger into somebody that is going to pay you with their attention and consume anything. You consume the NFL because obviously you're a fan. But if there was some new sporting event that came out tomorrow, you might not consume it because all of the things that you consume the NFL for are for whatever reasons that you are having that you have an enjoyment for them. But the question is how does the NFL take someone like you that's consuming, whether whether you were looking at the score on your iPhone or what, like, how do they turn that into, how do they monetize that, right? And so all I know is, like, I remember one of my favorite mentors going through some of the oldest marketing in newspapers and learning more from that, because what happens is when we get into these other medias, we start trying to complicate it when it's actually what I feel like makes them successful. Let me say it differently. What made me become a better marketer was making it simple and understanding that what makes a phone book ad work and what makes an ad on an online directory work is the same fundamental. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It really is. And whether you have a newspaper ad with a call to action or you have a blog with a call to action, it's fundamentally different. And I think somewhere in the mind of knowing that technology, which is new school, shouldn't make you think that the fundamental principles in change. In fact, I would say some of the best marketers in the world are great marketers because they understand the fundamentals, and they don't overcomplicate it because of the delivery, because of the media. I mean, I don't care if the message is delivered by a hologram in some 3D glasses or through Alexa. Ultimately, at the end of the day, you got to get people's attention, and people are going to need to be sifted and sorted and put into what we would call is a pipeline of some sort, some opportunity. And, like, when I sold gym memberships, we didn't have email. When I sold gym memberships, they didn't give us any. We had paper. You know what I mean? We had pieces of paper and names on it, right? And so you have marketing, but then once marketing delivered me an opportunity, the difference was I couldn't call my health club. I couldn't call 24-hour fitness and say, hey, listen, I got a hot one. Will you shoot me a video? Will you give me something to give to this person? I didn't have the tools that I did now. What I have now is, I think from a marketing and messaging, I think we have the ability to nurture, and nurturing them is through content. I think John Deere and, this is John Deere was one of the first real great content marketers, because they would continue to mail physical mail you information about their new equipment and stuff, no different than like a Sears catalog would mail you a catalog, right? And so for me, I believe that what I'm seeing that's different is, it's not only old school and new school with marketing, it's old school and new school with the whole entire sales process, and what I think we've done at Market Maker that I'm extremely, 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 extremely. I mean, I was on the plane this morning, and my buddy sitting next to me, who's one of the best marketers I know, said, this could be, what we created with like the drag and drop opportunity pipeline. He said, he literally said, this could be revolutionary, and it's because when you look at when you look at the marketing that creates the lead, which everybody does. I had a call with the girl this morning. She got 70 leads. The problem is she don't have a system of what to do but call them. So she can get them, but she doesn't have a system. And I think the ability to continue to educate our people is important. NFL entertains you, right? NFL entertains you. Our job is to educate people, And I think, I remember in 2013 doing an exponential growth summit, and the number one topic when we surveyed everybody, I had told people that the only thing you need in your real estate business is a newsletter. And I had just known a guy who took over a neighborhood with a newsletter. This guy crushed it with one piece. It was a newsletter, but newsletters, I had went and actually studied some of the best newsletters in the world. And newsletters fundamentally were supposed to be 40%, the actual content, and like what it is that your customer wants as far as in real estate, stuff about real estate, like updates and, articles about real estate. But the other 60% should be about you, because, at the end of the day, when people are on a newsletter and being nurtured, they're learning more about you. You're becoming more humanized. That, they start. I remember I did my first newsletter and I talked about my honeymoon, and then I did one and I talked about something my dog did. And it was funny. I would get emails with people telling me stories about how they had a similar experience in their dog, or their friend went to the same resort for their honeymoon, or they would, we put pictures in there. So the thing is, entertainers make way more money than educators. And so if you look at the people that are out there that are becoming, like, doing things that are incredibly successful online, is they have the balance of getting the attention of the audience, and then that audience has something that becomes fascinating. And Sally Hedgehog is, I believe, her name. If you want to really read a really good book, go get I would tell both you and Michael Odo and Jake, y'all should buy the book Fascinate. It is unbelievable how great this lady laid out. But the thing is, there's quizzes on to find out your fascination triggers. And the reason that's important, when I went to Dan Kennedy's house, he had all her material all over his basement. He's one of the best direct response marketers in the world, if not the best. But the point is that he knew how important it was to be fascinating. People do business with Dan Kennedy not because the way he dresses. I can tell you that. It's not because of his tonality. It's not his tonality, and it's not his hairstyle or his sharp tongue or his logo. It's because he's become extremely fascinating, and his persona, they call him Mino Dan. And Mino Dan is someone that's really rigid but really good, almost like your old football coach who, he's got this persona, but people pay a lot of money for him to kind of be, tell them what to do in a way where, they can tell their story about being with Mino Dan, right? And so if he just was just like any other, consultant and didn't have that persona, that story, he wouldn't be as fascinating. I don't think he'd be as successful. And so, I think it's a balance, of marketing, but also leveraging the tools today that allow us to really let people almost feel like they're living their life with us, like you were able to spend 9 hours of your day with the NFL.
Well, and I want to jump in because Mike, you hit the nail on the head talking about the gal who generated 70 leads but didn't have a system. I think that's the essence. When Jake told me, the topic, there were some conversations that we had around specifically advertising versus marketing. And I want to read the definition just real shortly. Advertising is an audio or visual form of marketing communication that employs an openly sponsored, non-personal message to promote or sell a product. And so for me, when I first learned direct response advertising, I thought that was marketing. Now, marketing, the definition of that is the study and management of exchange relationships. Marketing is used to create, keep, and satisfy the customer. And I think really that's the fundamental difference of what we wanted to communicate here today on the podcast, because a lot of agents have great marketing. They've got marketing down. Myself, back, when I first learned really direct response marketing, I felt like that was, all there was to it. And in order to increase my business, I just had to generate more leads. I didn't realize that there was a middle of funnel or a bottom of funnel. And I think maybe the title of the topic was wrong because it struck a chord with you. And I know your really craft and personal study is marketing, and you don't want to come off whack given something that is inaccurate, and you're 100% spot on as far as messaging. In fact, for me, I think it's because there's nothing new under the sun why the messaging works across time. People's motivators are still people's motivators. But really, just to sum it up, that's kind of the difference in what we wanted to tackle, in describing the other side of marketing. It's not just the top of funnel in the advertising and banging them out with one solution to get them to the bottom of funnel, which is, calling them and hoping that you do a good job of it, or hoping that you remember, or hoping that your agents do.
Absolutely. And I think that you're both spot on with it, with the understanding of, what old school methods, and how it's just the delivery of that, that changes the effectiveness. But understanding the value of, like, what you were talking about with John Deere. I grew up in old East Moline, Illinois, where they're headquartered in Moline, and like everybody works for Deere, and my son's obsessed. And when we went back there, we went to the museum, and they've had like one of the longest running, essentially marketing publications for any company, that goes out on a monthly basis, which again is just the content part of it. And are you creating assets, or are you just renting space online? And I think that when I was first talking about the topic, like that's where I was stuck on, as a big focal point, which is, as you're nurturing people and nurturing the relationship and marketing to them in different ways, because the old ways are becoming more difficult. Caller ID. I think there's like Sprint started something where, phone numbers can pop up, and on the caller ID it can say, potentially spam, on them. Like those things are going to continue to evolve, because as we've created more technology and put more things in the palm of our hand, we've also been able to shield ourselves from more, because the technology allows to do that. So you have to be able to attract people with information that is educational and entertaining, for them to want to stay in a park. They want to stay on your farm, right? We've talked about that before, where you want to have this field with cattle, and you want to build a fence on it so they don't just wander off and head on like some of it, right? It's all the basis of content and having those assets that are created that will live on forever in your marketplace. People will search that stuff, and you'll start building things organically as well. But that's just a process that you have to be able to know that you're going to have a time where it tips for you, because you'll have so much valuable content out there, that people will be approaching you out of the blue. It won't just be the intentional system that has these different, different kinds of bait in the water to get more people into the top of your funnel, and then a system to be able to convert those people now and over time. But also be able to have some bait in the water that's organic, and people just coming to you, and then they go into the system, and it's all about being able to leave those breadcrumbs along the way, but have real assets, that are, if you're looking at it from a marketing balance sheet, like those are assets you have. That blog post, or that video content, or that website, or whatever that may be. Just creating those assets along the way, are dual purpose at the beginning, but definitely can serve you over the long haul.
Man, I was talking to an agent the other day, and she was telling me like some of the tools that she uses, and she said, we have the ability to do email drip marketing, through this. I think it was Top Producer, and she said, but we don't have any email drip marketing, and my gal's supposed to do that, but she's never done it. And I guess essentially it's on me, which she was taking a little bit of a leadership and ownership of it. But I was really thinking about it, and I was like, man, it's hard to know where to start, right? Like, what are you going to talk about to somebody for 12 months or 12 weeks or whatever? And I was looking back, actually last night I was in my closet, and I was looking at an old newsletter that I had, and what I was realizing was that if I didn't have that track to run on initially, which none of the content was mine, I probably wouldn't have sent out squat.
Right. It just becomes difficult.
It does. And so that's one of the things that we want to make sure that we're helping clients with, helping agents with, giving them kind of a track to run on in that regard. You don't have to reinvent the wheel, basically. There's a lot of things that work out there. There's a lot of topics and strategies. I mean, we created the ability to have, the 411 newsletter or PDF rather, where it has, a series of, I think, like 34 different topics to create content on that's relevant and segmented between a buyer journey or a seller journey, just to get the juices flowing.
All right. Well, I think this was great, because I just coming into this, I thought, like Mr. Reese opened my eyes a little bit to, being able to see what works and how it's shifted, right? There's this new school versus old school, but a lot of it's just in the delivery and how we can get in front of people and have to adjust to the times. The focus on the content, we've talked about it before. The publish or perish. It's all about getting it out and staying in front of it. And Oda, we talked about it yesterday of how do you become, the popular kid in high school of your community.
You know what I have? You know what problem I have with today's podcast? And I don't want this to be edited, by the way, because when you listen to our podcast, I want you to know what I'm thinking. And, Jake, for me, like, what would be more actionable for people is less theory. And what I see is, like, when I listen to a podcast, I have entertainment, right? And so that's why I'm saying this, because I feel like this is entertaining for people. But if you wanted to, like, dive into my brain, like Jake, I know how to come up with the keywords that people should write about, right? And the problem is people don't know where to start. And so, like, talking in theory, the difference between advertising and marketing, when I get off of this podcast, my business didn't change. You know what I'm saying? My business didn't change. The problem and the opportunity is, I know the stuff that we're working on, which is, like I said, revolutionary, but taking somebody who's sitting in their home right now, right? And we picked this topic. Like I know, because I've seen you're like one of the best implementers of anybody. And your quick study, I think that if you sold real estate, you probably outsell anybody in any market. But there's a gap that I'm seeing, and it's more because I'm thinking about all the faces in the audience when I was this weekend. And I'm imagining us emailing them this podcast, right? And saying, listen to it. And then they hang up, but there's nothing they can do. Yes, they want to. I mean, Rainmaker podcast is about the methodology of inbound marketing. And we've said it, on every episode. If you've not listened, that we got a methodology. But how are we helping people? Where are they getting stuck? And what are some of the things that we do? Like, for me, I know I sent you an email about the content calendar. And the problem is that no one's going to publish content, because at the fundamental basic principle, it starts with your calendar. I was on a podcast this week with Jay Kinder on Face to Face podcast. And I was asking Jay, so let me ask you a question, Jay. Where do you think people start? And he literally said, it starts with your calendar. Now, we were talking about doing the math and knowing your numbers, right? And I remember when he replied with, it starts with the calendar. And I remember thinking, well, I don't know if I agree with that, but I let him talk. Because for me, one thing that I've noticed in podcasts is it's not a kumbaya of us agreeing, right? It's more of a podcast to me is listening to people have a conversation around a topic that they're passionate about, and they're respectfully having a discussion where other people can say, oh, I can see that point of view. That becomes the entertainment, right? If we just all agree and teach people, then we can just do webinars and send them to people to watch, right? But part of this is what me and you got. We talk about this. We have calls every single day and have high-level discussions, sometimes where we disagree or agree about marketing, right? Then we go and do stuff and learn, and when things get work, we're happy, and when they don't, we just blame Odo. And so my point is that Jay said, we were talking about knowing your math, and he said, let me tell you why it's important to start with your calendar. He said, because there's stuff in your calendar right now that is low productive activities. They're low value. And I was like, I can't deny that. I have a 9 box that I go over in every presentation. That is so crazy that I was like going to disagree with him. I'm glad I bit my tongue and listened and let him finish and didn't interrupt him, because he was right. He was right. If you want, most people, I caught a call with the lady, and bless her heart, I feel like she saw me speak, and something I did got her real excited, and she ran up on me after the event and got into my calendar. And so I did a call with her. Literally 3 minutes after my plane landed, I was on the phone with her. But the lady wanted to talk about a bunch of stuff that meant nothing. And I was trying to make it easy for her. We didn't have to. Dan Kennedy used to tell me people pay him a lot of money, to $34,000 to spend 8 hours with him. But Joe Polish, who's one of the best marketers in the world, and so you spend $36,000 with Dan Kennedy, and what happens is if you when the top marketers get what they want, like a Frank Kern or Joe Polish, when they go to spend a day with him, they don't try to take it to the very minute. And Dan told us that up front. He said, listen, I'm here, you paid, we can go all the way to the minute, and you can ask every question, or we can really focus on your business and your problem, and once you have your answer, we can go have a good lunch, and I'll take you back to your hotel. It's up to you. People do it differently. And I remember, when you feel like you're attached to the money and you spent a lot of money, you're going to take them to the minute. You know what I'm saying? You're just going to, because you want to get your money's worth, right? But the truth is that this lady who had 30 minutes of my time wanted just to take up my time on the phone. I gave her her answer in 5 minutes. And the answer was she didn't even know the conversion. She didn't know the cost of, she didn't know the cost of any lead that she had. She didn't know the cost per lead. She didn't know the conversion mechanism. She didn't know how many people she spoke to. She didn't know the visitors to her website. But she had a big ass problem is she didn't know what she had 7 deals under contract, and she didn't know which one. I mean, literally, she didn't know the cost to acquire any of the customers from 7. I said, this is pretty simple. If you were on the phone with a Frank Kern, he would literally ask, you've been in the room with him. Both of you have been on the phone with him. And he would ask you, let's just find out what's working. Oh, this is working. How do we do more of that? It's that simple. And this shit over here ain't working. Why don't we stop that? You know what I mean? And so the point is that right now, when people go and just invest in leads, it's not just leads, it's the entire sales and marketing process. Right? If you're just thinking of leads, it's like this lady that I was working with who's just asking me questions and questions and questions that unfortunately for her, she feels productive, but she's just confusing herself. I gave her the answer. She asked the question. It was almost as if she needed it to be complicated. And here's the bottom line. You got stuff that's currently working. You have stuff that's not. And you have people that are ready to do business now, and you have people that aren't. And you can either call people or you can communicate to them in a way that they call you. I believe it's that simple. And that you have all these different media channels that we have to work with, and every day they're going to change. But at the end of the day, as consumption goes up, trust goes up. If you have the right marketing message and the right positioning, people are going to be predisposed to do business with you if they know, like, and trust you. And so if you're just generating leads and you're getting on the phone with somebody that has no clue who you are while you're calling, then you probably should change your strategy. And the problem is that I'm on the road talking to people that are literally, this is true. I'm on the road. I'm on the road yesterday. I talked to like 5 people. They're doing it all right. But you know what the biggest problem is? Y'all want to know?
Yeah, what is it?
They don't know who's consuming what. They don't know. So I had a guy run up to me and says, Mike, dude, I loved your presentation. I totally agree. I've been doing videos every single week. Another guy, I love your presentation, Mike. Look, here's my card. I do a podcast every single week. And I was like, that's great. What's your consumption metrics? They have no idea. And that's why it's not just about doing it. It's understanding the integration of the tools and the sales. Like with Market Maker, we can see somebody who consumes a blog. We can see someone who listens to a podcast, who clicks on a link. We can score those people. We can sift and sort. Hell yeah, it'd be no fun to have to call the entire database every time you did something to find out who did what. And if you're just doing videos because you read a book and saw a video and think it could work, that's fine. But you should be thinking deeper than that. You should be thinking about, how am I going to use this to get a customer, and is it working? And if you believe in consumption, then you need to measure it, because how do you know what happens if you sent out 20 videos and one of them people watch to the end and other ones people don't watch? Well, if you knew that, then you could take that video and put it in a subscriber sequence and send it to everybody when they become a lead and said, hey, thanks for connecting with me. And my top 3 blogs in relationship to, somebody wanting to buy or sell a house were this. I hope that you find them beneficial and helpful.
Man, I love it. I mean, that's the whole idea of what we're building. in a nutshell. So when you create those things, you have those assets, you have the ability to know what's working and what's not, and you have a track to run on moving forward, so that um, you don't have to do it over and over and over, kind of like, throw darts in the dark.
Right. And uh, I love the pushback there, Michael.
I'm not. It's not pushback. It's
No,
just I know what you do every day, and I know people are listening to every one of our podcasts, and they're wanting the place to start, right? And the best thing you can do anytime for somebody is make it clear and simple. Okay, what do I need to do, right? And so my question is, if somebody wants to stop doing what we call the old way or the new way, if somebody wants to, whatever it is, what's working now, and how can somebody, what big ass problem are we solving for people? How are we solving them? And how can they get to the value to experience the value that other people that we've helped solve the problems, and how can we streamline that versus, talking too much in theory about, um, and I'm poking fun at you, but this will make it more entertaining. But if I'm listening to the NFL, that's all great, but you know, the NFL network, how do we take a conversation about the NFL content and translate that and make that, when it's over, land on a point that doesn't end on okay, I agree, but ends on, oh, I agree, and me too, and this is what I can do about it.
that is a very, very great point. And I just know that I think without that, we actually enable what I've found to be one of the biggest problems with everybody, which is just like that analysis or paralysis by analysis, and always trying to find a better way, and not what we were talking about a couple weeks ago. Of the clay pots, and which one was the best one. It was the one that wasn't focused on making the best one. It was the one that was focused on making as many as they could, and then that got down to the best one. So the action is what's missing for most people. So if I were to say, and everybody's going to be at different starting points. So some people have taken advantage of this. I've thrown out my email. I've jumped on the call with a few different agents that have reached out looking for help. And a lot of times the challenge depends on where you're at currently. Like if you have nothing in place, then where you're going to want to start is going to be different. But the biggest thing is just doing, right? Like you've got to have actionable takeaways that you're going to do, right? So if you need help getting clear on what that is, I would love to jump on a call with whoever. You can email me, jake@marketmakerleads.com, and I will jump on a call and kind of break down where you're at and what the next action step is going to be. But regardless of anything, you've got people. If you're listening to this, you're probably not brand new in the industry. If you're brand new, you got to find people that you're going to be able to market to. But if you have a database already, you have money, and you have people that are choosing to go with other real estate agents. If you have more than probably 500 people in your database, over 1,000 people in your database, you probably can look back and there's somebody that went and bought and sold in the last year with somebody else that's in your database. And if you paid for the lead, you paid for them to have somebody else convert them. So you've got to be able to set up the system. So if I were to start in one place for somebody that's got a database, that knows that they should be putting out content, that's not putting out content, then I would start with the calendar and making it a priority. If there's no room in my calendar, which is probably not true, but there's no room, replace it with a lower leveraged activity. Replace the lower leverage activity with it, I should say. And start by putting it in the calendar. Dedicate a half hour to an hour worth of your time tomorrow to later today if you have to. Don't listen to another one of our podcasts. Don't listen to another webinar. Just go and do this first, and then move on to the next hiccup, right? Which will be a variety of different things depending on what you do. But if you're going to put it in the calendar, start with finding out, based off of your last 10 buyers and 10 sellers, write out the top questions that they had, the top things that they needed clarity on, the top things that when you told them or educated them face to face, they're like, oh, that's really knowledgeable. Like, that was really good. I didn't know that. Take those things, write them down, and now you have topics that you can talk about on video and record. Just record. Mess it up, screw it up. You're not going to do great if it's your first time. That's okay, because as you get better, you're just going to as you do more, you're going to get better. And it's just a matter of dedicating the time, put it in there as a weekly thing in your calendar, and just do it. But you should have 10 to 20 topics out of the gate just by looking at the past 10 buyers and 10 sellers that you've had and the top topics that they have. And then what we're going to do once we get past that of just doing it, we're going to start making sure that the keywords are done properly, and you're targeting the right parts. So when people are searching those things, that you have an asset now that people are going to start coming to organically. But in the meantime, you just got to get that content in front of your database. Get that content in front of your people, so when they do go to buy or sell, they think of you, and you stop the bleeding that's happening in your database when they're picking other people, other agents in your marketplace, when they're in your database, which is it's something that people don't go back and look at. But if you did go back and look at it, you'd realize how much of an opportunity you really have just sitting there. Kind of goes along with the book that we're working on. But it's your database is probably your best asset that you own. And it's got the biggest lifetime value for sure. It's just a matter of if you do something about it. So stop, get it in the calendar, and just record something today.
Boom.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, I love it, man. Let's get that book rocking, man. This was a great episode, and we can definitely edit it down where it needs to be edited down, but it's raw and dirty, man. I appreciate y'all putting in the work and jumping on today. I can't wait to really share with everybody what we're going to talk about next week, which is you definitely want to stay tuned, because we are going to break down the pipeline and how to look at your business and make it more predictable by building a pipeline. And most importantly, how to leverage technology so that you can get how to really use automation so that you can get more of a predictable outcome for leads that are in different stages. And I think it's really incredible, some of the things that we've seen and been helping people do and done ourselves. So I'm excited about next week's topic, Jake. And Mike, man, I appreciate you jumping on always. And can't wait to see you, Jake, down at the new office, brother.
Yes, sir.